my anxiety levels have skyrocketed because, I'm really anxious that this predatory paedophile, this man who is capable of serious manipulation and coercion, who was incredibly dramatic during the court process, that that he might want to seek some kind of revenge.
The leader of a Rochdale grooming gang has been released from prison after serving 14 years behind bars. Sir Keir Starmer has asked the Home Secretary to look at ways to deport Shabir Ahmed to Pakistan, despite a legal loophole actually stopping that move. Andy Burnham is demanding that Ahmed is forced to leave. Let's speak to Sara Rowbotham, the whistleblower who exposed the Rochdale sex abuse ring. Sara, good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon.
Thanks so much for joining us. As we speak, then, this man is no longer behind bars. How do you feel about that? How do you respond to that reality?
I'm really anxious about it. I have to admit that for the past couple of days since I learnt of his release, and I only learnt of his release, his pending release on the news, my anxiety levels have skyrocketed because I'm really anxious that this predatory paedophile, this man who is capable of serious manipulation and coercion, who was incredibly dramatic during the court process, that that he might want to seek some kind of revenge, and equally that his predatory behaviour is his ability to treat children with such disregard, that hasn't gone anywhere. There's been no reparation or, no kind of real assessment that his attitudes towards women and girls have changed at all.
Yeah.
I was really anxious that he was going to be placed somewhere in Greater Manchester, that, that services around him, security services around him wouldn't be robust enough to stop him engaging in social media or having a social media presence, or that, is somebody going to be watching him 24 hours a day forever now? I know he's 73, he's an older man now, so what happens if he had to go into hospital, or if he, had to go into an older person's accommodation? Is that level of security still going to be afforded him then? My anxiety, and I wasn't abused by this man, I just know the abuse that he committed.
Yeah.
And my anxiety levels are significant. They're just, just scary.
Yeah, well, and we hear that. And what is striking about that, if I may, is for somebody such as yourself who has shown such immense courage in all of this to bring these gangs down, actually what we hear is that there is still a horrifying amount of power that somebody like this has over survivors.
Absolutely. But that's what it's all about, isn't it? It's all about power, the manipulation and the coercion and the, inflicting violence and violent threats. It's all about power. It's having power over the victim. How that power dynamic doesn't ever go away, because ultimately those threats were very real. He in court, he was very clear that he didn't see any of the children who he assaulted or abused as worthy of any kind of empathy, or he described them as prostitutes. He said that, one of them was a really good businesswoman. He didn't acknowledge at all that they were children who he was manipulating and abusing.
Yeah. The other part of this, I suppose, is that it feels like as a whistleblower in such a serious story here, that actually you're still paying for being honest. And I just wonder if you would ever reflect on the system and how it has treated you in the aftermath of your courage and honesty. And I'll just add to that the Prime Minister, and indeed the prospective Prime Minister Andy Burnham, are promising to review all options to deport this man. Is that what should happen? Is that something that would represent the system finally looking after you?
Thank you for asking, because I really appreciate that. The role of, the consequences of being a whistleblower really complex, and you know, you feel as though you're doing the right thing at the time, and you know you're doing the right thing at the time, but the aftermath of all of that is really, you know, it ruined my life. Wanting this man to be deported is really important, and I think we do have to put this country first. However, you know, within all of that, within that agenda, we therefore saying that women and girls in Pakistan are not valuable enough, you know, that we send this horrible terror into, you know, into Pakistan, and we therefore saying that it's okay for those women and girls to allow this man to be, you know, in their community. I'm not confident that it's the total solution. It probably is for now, and I'm really glad that Andy Burnham has you know, strengthened the fight, the argument to get him deported. But equally, he isn't the only person who's ever been released from prison who's committed horror on children or women. You know, he isn't the only rapist who's been released on prison. He isn't the only child abuser who's been released on prison. And I think there's something quite structural that there are gaps in the system that I think we need to fix, because simply deporting him isn't actually the whole solution.
Yeah, and part of that conversation, Sara, is about whether he's our problem to solve, if I can put it as informally as that. And I wonder where you stand on that. Is it simply that he shouldn't be released, that he should be detained somewhere here? And I should add, and you've made mention of this already, the Home Office says he will be under strict supervision, there will be exclusion zones, there will be electronic tags and licensing conditions and all of these sorts of things. But I wonder if what you're saying is that actually his detention here should be sort of more firm, more concrete than that.
I do. I think what that needs to do, because that's an awful lot of resources, isn't it? And there's only ever one pot of money, and I worry that what it doesn't afford then is a robust structure for survivors and victims to feel secure, because it's about I wasn't abused in this situation, I know exactly what he did, but it's about the survivors feeling secure that that this man will never have any opportunity to abuse anybody else ever again. So yes, you know, putting that level of resources in is important, but there's another side to that, which is about care for the survivors, care for the victims, care for them, that, you know, they feel okay, that they can go about living their everyday life and feel okay. You know, under a shadow of a threat of a man, you know, living nearby or being in, because my worry was he was living in the Bale Hostel at the top of my road, you know.
Yeah, of course. And then you might bump into him. Absolutely.
Yeah. We don't know where he is. He's somewhere in the country. We want him miles away from anybody.
Yeah.
You know, but my worry is that all the resources will go to securing him, and the flip side of that is making sure that survivors feel safe and are reassured that that's not going to happen to them again.
Yeah, of course. Sara, thank you very much. Thank you for your time.
My pleasure, Calum. Thank you.
Good to speak to you. That is Sara Rowbotham, who is the whistleblower who exposed the Rochdale sex abuse ring. Your thoughts on that are welcome, and what the outcome should be. I mean, you heard from Sara there, her own take. She is concerned that actually just deporting this person makes him a threat and a risk elsewhere, and actually women and girls should be valued in that way and prioritised in that sense. He is the UK's problem. So does the UK need to step up and deal with this in a way that doesn't just boot him out of the country, but takes responsibility for, as Sara was saying, protecting victims and survivors and keeping them safe in all of this as well? Somebody, this is Louis, says, surely they could pass a law specifying this individual should be deported. Parliament is sovereign after all. Surely no one would oppose a deportation act specifically for this person to override existing legislation. And somebody else, this is Jane, says, what an amazing woman this whistleblower is. Incredible strength.